But first and foremost, we must talk about this trilogy, Tabor. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Oh, only that it's one of the greatest trilogies of all time. It's up there for me. And not only just because of the outcomes and stuff like that, but just like the hype surrounding the cards and the mystique of the card altogether. You know, there was a lot of big things that we got to talk about coming up. But before we get into that, Mason, I need to shout out our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Church of MMA. Guys, give us a follow. Hit us up. We're posting funny memes. We're making you guys laugh. Hit us up. Also, YouTube channel. We're almost to, I think, 80 subscribers.
Yep.
Yeah,
almost to 100 too.
Yeah, we're getting comments. People are engaging. I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm seeing, guys. Make sure you're sharing our videos and showing all your friends and subscribing to the channel. You know,
absolutely.
It's only going to help us grow. So, okay, DC Stipe. What did you like? Just going into the fifth round, did you have it 2-2? Like, what were your thoughts, really? I mean, we just watched the fight again.
Rewatched it, and I got to say that first round initially, when we watched it for the Fight Companion last night, I go, okay, I thought DC won the first round, but watching it a second time, I got to be honest, and I got to be completely unbiased here. Watching it a second time, I saw Stipe winning that round, winning that first, and with that said, I think I have it. I very well could have that fight 4-1. So I do not think it was an egregious call from the referees. I do see how people have it 2-2 going into the fifth. I know Dana White had it 2-2. I know Brett Okamoto had it 2-2. And I do, there are arguments for that, believe it or not, even with the significant strikes being quite different. But at the end of the day, I mean, whether or not you had it 2-2, Stipe got the job done and he won that fight. And I don't think there's any complaints or any,
Before we get into like the backstory and the legacy and stuff like that, let's just round by round. So I mean, it's essentially that first round is the big debate for everybody.
Yes.
Like who won the first? It was the closest, and the fourth round was DC.
Yes.
So I agree with the judges that I had it 4-1. You know, I thought it was 1-2-3 Stipe. DC in the fourth, and that fifth round, like we were saying, that fifth round was much closer than a lot of people thought, but just the way Stipe was holding him up against the fence, you have to give it to him. It was really a legendary performance, man. It really was. I mean, DC he was giving it his all, but it seemed like the takedowns just weren't coming. The takedown attempts essentially stopped after the first.
And I had told you guys before that fight even happened, I said that is psychological warfare. I do not believe DC is going to try to implement his wrestling as much as he's saying he's going to. And sure enough, I was right on the money with that. It was all psychological warfare because after that first round, Tabor, he never tried to take him down again.
It was shocking.
I mean, it was. Because I really thought he was going to try it, and he had success in that first round. He took Stipe down. Granted, Stipe got back up, but that's going to happen. I mean, with good scrambles and whatnot. But I really thought DC was going to implement that more, talking about it. But I'm telling you, like, watching him and how much he was bringing it up, that he was going to implement his wrestling, I go, no, he's not. There's something off about that. You don't tell someone your game plan that much. You might sprinkle it in, but I don't know.
It just seemed like consensus that was his keys to success. That was like his way to unlocking the victory. It was just, and it was just weird when he just decided to turn this fight into essentially like a kickboxing match, but it was really a boxing match. Like they were mainly throwing 1-2s and hooks.
Yeah, they had a few good leg kicks thrown in there, but overall it was. You know, I am really struggling today. I think this is the first fight that has really hit me, and I am so utterly happy for Stipe. He is the greatest heavyweight of all time, and it couldn't have gone to a more deserving man. Stipe is an incredible human being. He's a firefighter. He's a family man. There's no bullshit with this guy. You get exactly who you get. And I think everyone and anyone loves Stipe, and I am so happy for him. And I do not want to take away from that because Stipe had the performance of a lifetime. He solidified the fact that he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. But man, my heart hurts. My heart hurts so much for DC just knowing how much DC wanted that third fight and being such a big DC fan. And not only that, but like with Stipe, you don't get as much as you do with DC. DC has got his own show with Ariel Helwani, you know, and DC's this colorful personality, you know, where he's just funny, he's outgoing, he's charismatic, and we get to see him week to week, and it crushed me, man. And like even today, I'm dealing with some blues. I'm so happy for Stipe though. Like again, and I want to clarify that. I'm so happy for the guy, but at the same time, my heart hurts for DC, man, because you know how much he wanted that. So I think that's where I sit today. It's kind of a weird like back and forth. It's like an emotional roller coaster for me today. Like seriously, it's
it's like how
I've never
I felt.
been that invested into a fight either.
Yeah,
but I really was.
That's exactly how I felt when fucking Ben Askren got flying kneed in 5 seconds.
Right.
Like, I'm not even joking. Like it's exactly it ruined my fucking night. I was just pissed. Yeah. It ruined my night, it ruined my weekend.
And
I was just so invested in that fight, like you said. Yeah.
And I get what you're saying there, but like my night wasn't ruined either because I go, wow, Stipe put on a hell of a performance. I mean, he looked fantastic. That is exactly the Stipe that we wanted. He looked in shape. His cardio was phenomenal in this fight. I mean, just kept pressing the pace nonstop. And again, like I am so excited for Stipe's future at the heavyweight division. Whether or not he takes on Ngannou, whether or not he takes on John Jones, I mean, we are looking at the consensus greatest heavyweight of all time, and you cannot take that away from the man.
Yes.
He has won back-to-back times against DC. But again, like with all of that said and how excited I am for Stipe, I still go back to like, dude, it was soul crushing for me.
Yeah, well,
like,
it had to be
DC fan.
It had to be DC. It's like it couldn't have been anybody else. Like he couldn't have been the GOAT against John Jones. Well, like you're gonna beat his ass.
Yes,
like,
and
then we'd be happy.
And again, that's where I sit with DC. It's like, we had this whole thing where some people said that's not me. I'll clarify that. But some people were saying, oh, yeah, he's not the light heavyweight champ. He was just the placeholder for John Jones. Completely disagree. He was the light heavyweight champ, period. End of discussion. If you can't get your shit together, you're not the fucking champ.
Yeah.
DC was the champ. But some people say that.
Yeah.
And now with this heavyweight situation, I wanted it so bad for the man because he has had that on his record and people saying that shit that I was like, man, I'd love to see DC go out there and get the best of a trilogy and to say, boom, I am the consensus greatest heavyweight of all time. No one can take that away from me. And it just didn't come to fruition. And but again, like I keep going back to it. I'm just so happy for Stipe. So it's this weird. It's these weird things that I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, well, DC is just, and it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. He will forever go down as the runner-up. He'll forever go down as the number 2 guy.
I disagree with that. The heavyweight though, because you know what he did knock out Stipe in the first,
and he beat him, and he choked out Derek Lewis. Yes,
right.
But I mean, he lost. He lost the fight that he needed to win to be the GOAT.
But you cannot take away the fact that he was it's not an interim. It's nothing. He was
the champ.
2-division champ.
And he did
period. End of discussion. He will go down in the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest fighters of all time.
Yeah, but like you said, there's the asterisks of John Jones.
There is. Yeah.
And he did lose both of those fights as well. I mean, that was his career. I mean, that was essentially his wrestling career as well. I mean, he was a silver medalist, I believe. Mm-hmm. He couldn't get the gold, and now it's like he finally won something with the heavyweight, and then Stipe pretty much came and snatched him. But it just sucks. It just sucks because it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Yep. And it's like it couldn't have been 2 nicer guys fighting each other. And it's like it's one of those fights. It's like you just don't want to see either man lose. It really is.
Yeah. I think it would have been the perfect scenario if this fight hypothetically would have ended in a draw. I think it would have been the greatest, like, now both of them can ride
Everyone
can
ride off. Yeah, everyone's happy. Everyone gets paid.
But nonetheless, like Stipe won, and dude, he impressed me in this fight.
He really did.
From start to finish. I mean, really, like he just looked like the better man that night.
It was quite dominant.
Yeah.
It really was, in my opinion. Like he was just winning the exchanges on the feet the entire time, and it really was baffling to see that DC wasn't trying to even chain in any takedown attempts. Like I'm gonna go back to that every time.
We heard his corner multiple times in between rounds. They were like, "Hey, DC, you got to try to go for those takedowns." He was like, "Yeah, I see openings," but he never capitalized on those.
Yeah, never
openings.
even attempted.
Not one time after the first round, and it was baffling to me because he did take Stipe down in that first round. Yeah, Stipe got right back up, but nonetheless, like he was able to have success with it. He found success with it early, but he never implemented that again. And hearing all the interviews with DC throughout the last month, the last 6 weeks was I didn't do what I needed to do in my game plan, and I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to try my best to shine on the things that I'm the best at. And unfortunately for me, I feel like, again, he thought that he was going to be able to knock out Stipe.
It was almost the exact opposite of what he was saying.
It was. And a lot of things reminded me of that second fight, where instead of just taking him down and grounding him out for 4 or 5 rounds, DC tried to stand and bang with him. Hoping for that knockout punch. It's just, man.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're going to say that forever because that, it's the way you go out.
Right.
It's his last fight. He was walking away regardless. That was the narrative of the whole thing. So that'll always be the talking points of why didn't he take him down?
So let's jump forward. Let's move forward on this with DC. Okay, I'll ask you 2 questions. One, Dana White came out post-fight conference. He said, I don't know. DC might not be done. He says, who knows? He might come back, just the competitor in him. He might just come back and fight.
Yeah.
Do you think DC is done?
He said.
Yeah. Do you think DC's done?
I really do. I think he's done. I mean, other than
I would have to agree
unless
with
he got the 4th Stipe fight, which I don't see that ever being.
Nor
made.
do I. I think there's too much money to be made with either 1, Ngannou, or 2, John Jones. And that's kind of the question that moving forward, where do we go in this heavyweight division? Who does Stipe fight next? Do you take that John Jones? Does he just John Jones skip Ngannou, which to me would be such a messed up thing if Ngannou did not get the next shot. Yes, I understand, folks. 3.5, 4 years ago, Stipe beat the shit out of Ngannou for 5 rounds. You're right. Not arguing that whatsoever. But we have seen such an evolution in Ngannou's game in the last 3 to 4 years that it would just be such a slap in the face. It would be the same scenario as an Aljamain Sterling not getting a bantamweight shot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It'd be egregious. It really would be.
It would.
The only thing that would stop that is the John Jones moving up.
So,
and he was tweeting about it. So.
Here is my theory on that, okay? And I'm only saying if. I do not believe that DC is coming back. Let me preface that right away, okay? I don't think he's coming back. But if, hypothetically, if he is to come back, if John Jones gets that heavyweight shot, the only person Ngannou would fight would be DC. And then you do the runner-up. The winner of that fight gets one last shot at the title. Again, I don't see that happening. I don't think it'll happen. But that would be the only thing to me that would make sense if John Jones was able to skip the line and fight Stipe. Because who the fuck else is Francis Ngannou going to fight? Who else has he not just ran through? You got Rosenstruck. You got Overeem. You got Curtis Blades. I mean, come on, man. Who else is there for Francis Ngannou in that heavyweight division? So I think if they were to offer John Jones this fight against Stipe, you would look at this DC situation and go, hey, DC, I know you only want to fight for the belt, but you beat Ngannou. We will give you that shot no matter what. Whether or not it's John Jones or Stipe, that fight sells. So if DC, and again, I preface the big if, the big 2-letter word, if, but if DC were to come back, that's pretty enticing. You go and beat Ngannou, and you're going to fight either John Jones or Stipe again, no matter what, we're giving you the next shot. And the competitor in DC, he might have a quick turnaround. You might see 4 to 6 months from now, he might be fighting Ngannou while Stipe's fighting John Jones. And then 1 year, a 12-month period, you have 2 fights. It very well could happen.
I think it all depends on what's going down medically with DC right now. Because, he does have the torn cornea. From the eye poke in I think it was end of the third
round.
Yeah, end of the 3rd round. I think it all depends with time. Stipe had to get surgery on his torn retina.
Yeah.
So that's why he was out, it was 12 months before we had this fight. So who knows with DC? I really do think he's done.
Yeah.
I do think he's done. I don't think he comes back. I think he rides off into the sunset on this loss. And it's unfortunate he has to go off back-to-back losses, but it's like, you know what, dude? It happens sometimes.
It does.
Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. But the career he already laid out, the legacy he already has, the foundation he's already has built, it's fucking legendary.
No matter what.
Yeah, it's legendary.
No one can ever take that away from DC.
Yeah, absolutely.
2-division champ, one of the greatest of all time. And, he did go out on a shield, literally. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we love DC and he's one of the greatest.
He lost, but you know what? Those are some of the most entertaining heavyweight title fights I've ever seen in the last decade.
Well, how about this, man? How many times do you see a heavyweight fight go 5 rounds and it be entertaining all 5 rounds?
A 5-round banger,
Never.
by the way.
Never.
Yeah.
So hats off to both of these men.
Yes.
Who not only went the distance, but didn't make this a boring fight for 3 out of the 5 rounds because they were out of shape. Both of these men came in tremendous shape and had the fight of their lives for 5 straight rounds as heavyweights.
Yes.
Again, like, you could not have asked for any more as a fan. You couldn't have, especially out of heavyweights too. So again, thank you so much, Stipe. Thank you so much, DC. You guys have made this trilogy so incredibly amazing for the fans, and we owe you so much. We really do, man. Like, I love these two.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the narrative around Stipe as well before this fight even started was maybe he might retire. You know, maybe he's thinking about, he said he thinks about retiring after every fight, which, you know, I kind of said jokingly and stuff like that. But I really, the way he was so fired up after that fight ended, I really don't see him retiring anytime soon. So, yeah, it's either Ngannou or John Jones.
Well, and again,
gun to your head, what fight gets made? John Jones was tweeting. Ngannou told
he was
him to,
tweeting,
told
but
him to step back.
I don't think contract negotiations will go anywhere with John Jones. I think he'll want too much money coming up for that fight, and I don't think it sells as good as people think. I think it's a great, I think it's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. Am I buying the pay-per-view? Absolutely. There's no way I don't buy that pay-per-view. But again, you have a rising star in Ngannou. You have a Stipe who is 38, 39 years old. He's on the tail end of his career. I think the bigger and more intriguing fight for the UFC fans is having Ngannou versus John Jones. I think if you're Dana White, you bank on the fact that Ngannou on this second fight might just clip Stipe, might just knock Stipe out. You know, the guy coming... And this is so messed up for me to say because, you know, do I think Stipe can beat Ngannou again? Well, obviously. I mean, he dominated him for 5 rounds. Who's to say Stipe doesn't go out there and do that again? But I think if you're a bet man and you're looking at an organization as the way that Dana White does...
It's a lot closer fight than it should be.
Yes.
Essentially. Like, you'd think Stipe going into that fight would be a minus 300, minus 200 favorite. No, they're going to be fucking pick 'em.
Right. It'll be a pick 'em again.
I bet you Francis is a favorite. I bet you he's minus 200, minus 300.
He might even...
favorite.
Might be. But nonetheless, I think if you're Dana White and you're looking at this and you look at Stipe's age, I think you give Ngannou, and Dana White said that in the post-fight press conference. He goes, no matter what, Ngannou gets the next shot. He goes, he earned it. He goes, he's a completely different fighter than he was 4 years ago when he matched up against Stipe. And I believe in Dana White. I believe what he says there because, again, if Ngannou goes out and beats Stipe, you set up that super fight.
Yeah, so
what is there to gain as an organization? Let me phrase you this question too. What is there to gain if John Jones went out there against Stipe and lost? What is there to gain for the UFC? Nothing.
Yeah.
But what if Ngannou were to go out and knock out John Jones, the first guy ever to fight John Jones or beat
Finish
John
him,
Jones?
yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, beat John Jones. Okay, Ngannou's young. He's going to be the up-and-coming UFC star for the next 6 to 8 years. We all know that. I mean, he's literally the Mike Tyson of MMA.
Yeah.
Dare I say.
And it's only a matter of time before he gets the belt. It's really, I think it's just Stipe. I think Stipe is his only competition, essentially.
And again, if Stipe were to go out there against Ngannou again and whoop his ass again...
Greatest of all time,
Greatest
period.
of all time.
Period.
Well, I mean, he's already the greatest of all time with this DC trilogy. Let's not take that away from him. But if he were to go out there again against Ngannou and whoop his ass, I mean, if anyone were to ever say Stipe wasn't the greatest of all time, I mean, you should get smacked in the face.
Absolutely.
You're an idiot.
He's up there with GSP, John Jones. You know, he's up there. He's in top 3 contention. And it's like the GOAT. It's like the MJ LeBron debate. It's kind of dumb. It really is. Like, it really should be GOATs for their division. Like, without a doubt.
The time period as well.
Yes, the eras. You know, without a doubt, Stipe is one of the greatest champions we have to date right now. And it is the greatest heavyweight, period, so far, I believe. In the UFC. You know, I mean, there's always Fedor and stuff like that. You could always make a debate with that.
But again,
it's like,
different era.
Yeah, and I really do believe Stipe and even DC. I really believe both these men in their primes fuck up a Fedor in their prime.
Yes.
Fuck up
I agree.
You know, a Kane, maybe someone else like that in their prime. So really hats off to both these men because I really believe they're 1-2 in the GOAT heavyweight debate. So
Completely agree with that.
Yeah, but Ngannou, I think that's the fight they make. I would love to see the John Jones fight. Honestly, I'd way rather see John Jones than Ngannou. But just because I really think Ngannou probably viciously KOs Stipe in the second fight.
Second time.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
But again, I mean, credit to
I
Stipe's
kinda
chin
do,
because
but I
Ngannou
don't.
caught him a couple times in
Yeah.
that first round where I was like, oh, Stipe's going to sleep. There's
Yeah,
no way
there's
he's
a
going
lot
to
of
survive
times.
this. And what did he do? He
Yeah.
laid on top of Ngannou, put all his weight on him, made Ngannou tired, ragdolled him in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm not taking anything away from Stipe.
That was a legendary performance.
If I were able to have a time machine and move forward, and someone's like, "Yeah, Stipe beat him 5 rounds again, just dominated
be
him,"
shocked.
I'd be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's Stipe."
Yeah.
That's literally what he did the first time. So, but I really do like that matchup more than I like the John Jones matchup for the reasons that I've already stated. Stipe doesn't really have anything else to prove in the heavyweight division other than going out there and beating a young and upcoming heavyweight
Ngannou.
fighter, Ngannou.
Yeah, twice.
He could
But then
almost
he'd
go out
absolutely
on
solidify
top.
himself
Yeah,
as the GOAT.
Exactly. If he went out there and beat Ngannou again for the second time, Stipe's been talking about retirement a lot. Well, just go ahead and retire. Retire.
And I really think the Ngannou matchup is the more entertaining fight because I really think John Jones' fight is might be boring, honestly. Like,
A lot of
it's the
counter-striking
way
and-
John
yeah,
Jones fights. He
course.
makes every fight boring. It's just the way he controls the pace and all that stuff. He's just so good at that. So.
And that's why I like Ngannou better against John Jones for the first heavyweight fight.
because he's wild.
because
It doesn't
he's
matter.
wild.
It doesn't
He'll
matter
throw.
what kind of pace you're trying to put on.
I mean, that Jairzinho Rosenstruck fight that he went, I mean, dude, it was done in 20 seconds, but Ngannou and Rosenstruck were just throwing haymakers. I think that's how Ngannou goes out there to finish John Jones, if he does. It just throws wild and tries to catch him.
Yeah.
And Ngannou's so strong. I don't think John Jones has seen anything like that as far as strength, just pure and utter strength.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, we've spent 20 minutes on this one fight.
Yeah,
Is there anything you want to say for your final thoughts?
DC, you have nothing to be ashamed about. We love you. You have been just so important for the sport. You've done so much for the sport. I cannot wait to hear you commentate your next fights. And I want to see you. I want to see you in the UFC commentating or doing something until I'm 50, 60 years old. Because you are you are one of the most incredible people in the sport, period, and a discussion. And I've been such a huge fan of you since day one, dude.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love you. And shout out to Stipe as well, getting the job done in this trilogy. You look phenomenal. And dude, when you were on the scale, I was like, damn, Stipe.
I think that was the best Stipe we've seen in the octagon.
It was.
It really was.
It was a laser focused Stipe Miocic. And again, I'm so incredibly proud of him too. Who the fuck am I? Proud of you, whatever. Yeah. But I mean, as a fan, I am, because that is the trilogy that we wanted, and that's the trilogy that we definitely got. So
it's the trilogy the fans deserved.
Exactly.
It really was. Those last 2 fights were the fights the fans really deserved. Those were even the first fight, it was just so magical. The whole trilogy was just awesome from start to finish, and can't wait for the future of this heavyweight division. There's so much that can happen. So much.